June 15, 1944, Château de Mauan, Normandy, France. Oberstleutnant Heinrich Müller studied the intelligence photograph with undisguised contempt, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he held it toward the afternoon light streaming through the Château's damaged windows. His iron cross gleamed against his tunic as he sneered. "Look at this," Müller said, tossing the photograph onto the mahogany table with deliberate disdain. "The Americans have welded scrap metal to their tanks like peasants reinforcing a barn door." Hauptmann Ernst Vogel, his second-in-command, leaned forward and laughed sharply. "They call them Rhino devices, as if adding steel teeth to a Sherman will change anything. Our Panthers destroyed 17 Shermans at Bocage with a single tank." Major Klaus Weber, Chief Intelligence Officer for the 352nd Infantry Division, cleared his throat uncomfortably and adjusted his spectacles. "Herr Oberstleutnant, our analysis suggests these modifications may allow rapid penetration through the Bocage. Combined with their numerical superiority, this could prove problematic." But Müller waved him off with a dismissive gesture, his face hardening. "Problematic? We destroyed 47 American tanks in 3 days at Hill 192. At Caumont, we held against odds of 8-1. At the Vire River, a single company stopped an entire American battalion for 6 days. The mathematics are undeniable. German armor superiority remains absolute." What Müller didn't know, what none of them could have known as they sipped cognac in that requisitioned Château, was that the Rhino-equipped Shermans would tear through the Bocage defenses within 72 hours. The numbers would become catastrophic, 12-1. Over 4,000 Rhino devices produced in 3 weeks. Over 850 German defensive positions overrun in 14 days. The laughter in that Château would become history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in 47,000 German casualties. At Bocage, the kill ratio had been 17-1 in German favor. At the Battle of 73 Easting, German forces had maintained defensive positions against overwhelming odds. At Caen, panzer divisions had held the city for 6 weeks against massive Allied assault. At Hill 192, German defenders repelled 4 American assaults over 9 days, destroying 31 American tanks in the process. At Caumont, a single German company held against an entire American battalion for 48 hours. At the Vire River crossing, German forces destroyed 18 American vehicles while losing 3 of their own. The mathematics showed consistent German tactical superiority. Müller's combat record exemplified this superiority. 3 tank kills at Kursk in a single engagement on July 7, 1943. 5 tank kills at Kharkov in March 1943. Command of the defensive action at St. Lo, where his battalion destroyed 23 American vehicles in 2 days while losing 4 German vehicles. Receipt of the Knight's Cross for holding Hill 192 against sustained assault, where his forces inflicted 340 American casualties while sustaining 89 German casualties. Promotion to Oberstleutnant based on tactical excellence demonstrated across 11 major engagements. His tactical record was impeccable. His Panther tank represented German technological superiority. The 88 MKW K-43L-71 gun could penetrate 150 m of armor at 1,000 meters. It could destroy a Sherman at 2,000 meters with frontal shots. American 75 m guns required closing to 500 meters for penetration possibility. Even the improved American 76 m gun needed to close to 800 meters. His tank weighed 45 tons with 120 m frontal armor and 80 m side armor. The Sherman weighed 30 tons with 76 m frontal armor and 38 m side armor. Müller's Panther could withstand Sherman fire frontally at ranges where the Sherman could not even penetrate. His crew had trained for 3 years at dedicated tank schools. American crews trained for 4 months at hasty training facilities. His gunner had fired over 2,000 practice rounds. American gunners fired perhaps 200 rounds in training. His driver had logged over 1,200 hours in tracked vehicles. American drivers averaged 180 hours. The mathematics seemed irrefutable. Major Weber had assembled disturbing intelligence reports from the beachhead sector over 3 weeks of intensive analysis. American tank production reached 2,000 units monthly according to captured documents and prisoner interrogations. German production managed 684 tanks monthly across all types according to their own internal reports. American factories operated 3 shifts daily, 24 hours continuously, 7 days per week. German factories struggled with labor shortages, Allied bombing disruptions, and resource allocation problems that limited operations to irregular schedules. American factories employed 2.4 million workers in tank production alone. German factories employed 340,000 workers across all armored vehicle production. American workers received wages averaging $1.18 per hour with overtime pay. German workers received fixed wages often paid in rationed goods and supplemented with promises of future compensation. American factories consumed electricity without restriction. German factories faced power rationing and brownouts. Weber presented this data at 3 consecutive briefings on June 8, June 11, and June 14. Each time, Müller dismissed the concerns with references to German technological superiority and tactical excellence that would overcome numerical disadvantages through superior training and equipment performance. Production means nothing if the product is inferior, Müller stated flatly at the June 14 briefing. 1 Panther equals 5 Shermans based on our combat results. 1 German soldier equals 3 American soldiers based on training and discipline. 1 German tank commander equals 4 American tank commanders based on experience and tactical education. The mathematics favor us. We trade quality for their quantity and win through superior effectiveness per unit. Weber quietly filed his reports and marked them urgent. He sent copies to division headquarters, to corps headquarters, and to Army Group headquarters. He documented American production capacity and ammunition, 47 million rounds daily. German production, 8 million rounds daily. He documented American artillery, 24,000 tubes in the European theater. German artillery, 7,400 tubes on the Western Front. He documented American trucks, 450,000 vehicles supporting operations in France. German trucks, 87,000 vehicles supporting all operations on the Western Front, including those captured from conquered territories. Every category showed massive American material superiority. Weber's analysis concluded, "We face an industrial power that treats warfare as a production problem. They are solving it with methods that exceed our capacity to counter through tactical excellence alone." Weber noted that American logistics moved 12,000 tons of supplies daily across the beaches in Normandy. German logistics moved 3,400 tons daily to all forces on the Western Front. American forces consumed ammunition freely in combat, expending thousands of rounds to destroy single targets. German forces rationed ammunition carefully, allocating specific round counts per engagement. American artillery fired preparation barrages using more shells in 1 hour than German artillery allocated for entire weekly operations in some sectors. American forces called in air support casually for minor targets. German forces rarely saw air support, and when it appeared, it was quickly driven off by Allied fighters. The mathematics were becoming undeniable in daily combat reports, even if command refused to acknowledge the implications. Oberjefreiter Hans Dietrich, tank commander in the 21st Panzer Division, had faced American armor at Omaha Beach on D-Day. His Panzer IV had destroyed 4 Sherman tanks in the initial engagement. The Americans had attacked in waves, losing tanks steadily but continuing to advance. Dietrich noted in his combat log, "Enemy shows no concern for losses. Destroyed tanks immediately replaced. Ammunition supply appears unlimited. Our victory ratio remains high, but their numbers are inexhaustible." His observations confirmed what command already believed. German quality would overcome American quantity. The mathematics seemed irrefutable. Detroit, Michigan, April 1944. Joseph Corsetti pushed another steel blade assembly toward the cutting station at Chrysler Tank Arsenal, his work-hardened hands moving with the practiced efficiency of 18 months on the production line. This single facility produced 47 Sherman tanks daily, each one a complete combat vehicle ready for immediate shipment to the front. Every 18 minutes, another tank rolled off the assembly line, complete with engine, transmission, turret, main gun, machine guns, radio equipment, ammunition storage, crew positions, and all ancillary systems required for combat operations. The mathematics were staggering. 1 complete tank every 1,080 seconds, continuously 24 hours daily, 7 days weekly. In January 1944, America produced just 1,247 Sherman tanks monthly across all facilities. German planners viewed this production level as concerning, but manageable given their tactical advantages and defensive positions. By March 1944, American production reached 1,891 tanks monthly, an increase of 51.6% in 2 months that German intelligence initially dismissed as statistical error or temporary surge that couldn't be sustained. By May 1944, the Chrysler Detroit tank arsenal alone was producing 1,410 tanks monthly from its single facility in Detroit. This single American factory produced more Sherman tanks than all German factories combined produced tanks of all types. German intelligence officers who saw these figures reported them with notations indicating possible exaggeration or propaganda, unable to accept that such production was physically possible. By June 1944, total American tank production reached 2,134 units monthly. By August 1944, production peaked at 2,357 tanks monthly. This single category of vehicle, one type of tank from one Allied nation, exceeded total German production of all armored vehicles of all types by a factor of 3.4 to 1. The Chrysler Detroit tank arsenal, operating in a single American city, employing American workers earning competitive wages, using American steel and American manufacturing techniques, outproduced the entire industrial capacity of the German Reich by a ratio of 2.1 to 1. This single facility was producing more than the entire German nation. Margaret O'Sullivan, previously a seamstress at Hudson's department store in downtown Detroit, where she earned 45 cents per hour creating alterations for wealthy customers, now operated a 12-ton hydraulic press producing engine mounting brackets for Sherman tank engines. She produced 847 brackets every 8-hour shift, working at a pace that seemed impossible when she first started, but had become routine through practice and process refinement. Each bracket required precise tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch using micrometer gauges. Each bracket underwent 3 separate quality inspections. Each bracket that failed inspection was immediately discarded and melted down for reuse. No defective parts entered the assembly stream. Her station alone produced more mounting brackets in one 8-hour shift than the entire Henschel tank factory in Kassel, Germany produced in a full week of operations. Henschel employed 8,400 workers and produced an average of 378 mounting brackets weekly according to German production records. Margaret O'Sullivan, working alone with one hydraulic press and quality inspection equipment, exceeded Henschel's weekly output in 4 shifts. She earned $1.15 per hour, more than double her seamster wages, receiving weekly paychecks that exceeded what German factory workers earned monthly. She worked in a heated facility in winter, cooled facility in summer, with a cafeteria providing hot meals, medical clinic providing free health care, and security ensuring her safety. Her working conditions exceeded those of German factory managers. Her husband James served in the Pacific Theater with the 3rd Marine Division. Her son Robert worked the night shift at the same Chrysler facility, operating a lathe producing transmission gears. Her daughter Elizabeth assembled radios at the Packard plant on the east side of Detroit. The O'Sullivan family's combined industrial output in 1 week exceeded the monthly output of an entire German regional armament facility. Margaret personally produced 4,235 mounting brackets weekly. Robert produced 2,890 transmission gears weekly. Elizabeth assembled 340 complete radio units weekly. The O'Sullivan family, one American family among millions, contributed more to war production weekly than entire German towns contributed monthly. This represented the mathematics of American industrial capacity. Millions of workers like the O'Sullivans, each producing components at rates that seemed impossible, collectively burying Germany under avalanches of equipment. Robert Washington, from Birmingham, Alabama, operated the turret ring machining station that produced 156 precision machine turret rings per 8-hour shift. Each turret ring required 4 hours of machining time on sophisticated equipment, but 6 stations operated simultaneously with overlapping schedules that maintained continuous output. His single station's daily output exceeded the entire Krupp factory in Essen on their best production day. Krupp, the legendary German industrial firm that had supplied artillery to the Kaiser in World War I, and tanks to Hitler in World War II, operating multiple facilities across Germany with tens of thousands of workers, produced fewer turret rings daily than Robert Washington produced alone in Detroit. Before the war, Washington had picked cotton in Alabama for $2 per day, working sunrise to sunset, 14 hours daily, 6 days weekly, earning $12 weekly for backbreaking agricultural labor that offered no future. Now he earned $1.23 per hour operating precision machinery in an industrial facility, working 8-hour shifts, 5 days weekly with optional overtime on Saturday, earning $49.20 per week for his regular hours. His wages increased 410%, while his working hours decreased 42%, and his working conditions improved immeasurably. He had moved north in 1942, part of the Great Migration of African Americans escaping Southern segregation and seeking industrial opportunities. He learned precision machining in 6 weeks at a company training program that taught him to read micrometers, operate lathes, understand metallurgy, and maintain equipment. He now produced components that would help win the war, earning wages that allowed him to rent a house, support his family, and save money for the first time in his life. His sister Lucille worked at the Willow Run bomber plant, where Ford produced B-24 Liberator bombers at the rate of 1 aircraft every 63 minutes. His brother Marcus operated a lathe at the River Rouge Steel Complex, where Ford produced steel in quantities that exceeded some entire European nations. The Washington family had escaped sharecropping poverty and entered industrial prosperity, simultaneously improving their lives and contributing to American military victory through production that exceeded German capacity to resist. Robert Washington's personal story represented America's industrial and social transformation. Millions of workers moving from agricultural poverty or unemployment into industrial employment, learning new skills, earning good wages, and producing war materials at rates that buried enemy nations under unstoppable material superiority. William Knudsen, $1-a-year man from General Motors, where he had served as president before joining the government for symbolic $1 annual salary, while maintaining his GM benefits, managed production logistics for the entire Chrysler tank arsenal complex. He had transformed automotive assembly techniques into weapons production methods that revolutionized American military manufacturing. His innovations reduced Sherman tank production time from 8 weeks in 1942 to 4 days in 1944, a 93% reduction in production time while simultaneously increasing quality and decreasing defect rates. The facility operated 24 hours daily with 3 complete 8-hour shifts rotating seamlessly. Workers arrived and departed like clockwork, timing coordinated so precisely that shift changes required exactly 11 minutes for complete personnel replacement with no production interruption. Materials moved through the factory in continuous flow using conveyor systems, overhead cranes, and forked trucks that kept components moving constantly toward assembly stations. Nothing stopped, nothing waited, nothing sat idle. The mathematics were absolute. More production, faster production, better production than any nation in history had ever achieved. Knudsen had calculated that the Chrysler facility could, in emergency conditions, produce 63 complete tanks daily if production operated at maximum theoretical capacity. This maximum capacity from one American factory exceeded Germany's total monthly production across their entire nation. One American facility, operating in emergency conditions for 1 month, could produce more tanks than Germany produced across all facilities for an entire year. The mathematics were not just favorable, they were overwhelming. Thomas Chen, an American of Chinese descent from San Francisco, supervised the final assembly section where completed tanks received final inspections and testing before shipment. He had worked in his family's restaurant before the war, earning modest wages serving dim sum to restaurant customers. Now he earned $145 per week, supervising 60 workers who completed final tank assembly, installed ammunition, filled fuel tanks, tested all systems, and certified vehicles ready for combat. His section completed 47 tanks daily. Each tank was test-driven, all weapons test-fired, all systems verified operational. His quality standards exceeded those at German factories by factors measured in multiple categories. Chen rejected an average of 1.7 tanks daily for defects that would have been acceptable at German facilities. Minor paint imperfections, slight equipment misalignments, ammunition storage not perfectly seated, radio reception slightly below specification. These rejected tanks were immediately returned to earlier production stages for correction. The rejected vehicles exceeded German production standards significantly. They were combat-ready by any objective measure. But Chen's quality standards demanded perfection. This represented American abundance, the capacity to reject perfectly functional vehicles for minor cosmetic defects, because production capacity made such rejection affordable. Germany couldn't afford to reject functional vehicles for any reason. America couldn't afford not to maintain the highest standards, because abundance made perfection achievable. Americans discarded 23 tons of steel shavings daily from machining operations across the Chrysler facility. These shavings came from mills, lathes, drill presses, and grinders that shaped steel components to precise tolerances. The shavings were collected, but represented waste in the production process, material removed to create precise components. Germany allocated 18 tons of steel monthly to the entire 21st Panzer Division for field repairs, maintenance, and modification of damaged vehicles. The waste from a single day at one American factory, not defective production, merely the shavings from machining precision components, exceeded Germany's monthly allocation for an entire armored division's field maintenance. The mathematics were staggering. American waste exceeded German allocation. American discard exceeded Germans. American surplus exceeded German capacity. Workers threw away damaged gun barrels that failed inspection, barrels with bore imperfections measured in 10,000ths of an inch, barrels that would fire accurately but not perfectly. German factories would have carefully inspected these barrels, measured the imperfections, calculated that they remained functional, and installed them on tanks heading to combat. American quality control discarded them without consideration. The scrap bin at the quality control station, emptied daily, contained more rejected parts in 1 week than German factories could produce in optimal conditions. Rejected mounting brackets, 127 weekly. Rejected transmission gears, 89 weekly. Rejected turret components, 67 weekly. Each rejection represented a part that would have been acceptable at German standards but failed American standards. The total rejected parts weekly could have built 3.4 complete Panzer IV tanks at German production standards, where defective meant non-functional rather than imperfect. The cafeteria at the Chrysler facility, operated by the company to provide meals for workers, discarded more food daily than the German garrison at Cherbourg received monthly. The cafeteria served 14,000 meals daily across 3 shifts. Workers received hot meals including meat, vegetables, bread, butter, milk, coffee, and dessert. Each meal provided approximately 1,200 calories with balanced nutrition. Workers who didn't finish meals left food on plates. Workers who didn't like menu items selected alternatives and discarded refused items. Workers poured out coffee they found too cold. Workers discarded fruit they found bruised. Daily cafeteria waste included approximately 340 pounds of uneaten meat, 890 pounds of discarded vegetables, 234 pounds of thrown-away bread, 156 gallons of poured-out milk, and 290 gallons of discarded coffee. The calories wasted in 1 shift, approximately 670,000 calories from uneaten food, exceeded the daily ration for an entire German infantry regiment. German soldiers received approximately 3,000 calories daily when supplies were adequate, but often received 2,200 calories or less when supply lines were disrupted. The Chrysler cafeteria discarded more calories in 1 day than 223 German soldiers received in their daily rations. The waste represented abundance beyond anything in German experience or comprehension. The 847 defective mounting brackets that Margaret O'Sullivan rejected in 1 week represented production failures by American standards. The brackets had microscopic imperfections in hole alignment, slight variations in metal thickness, minor surface roughness that would affect paint adhesion. By German production standards, these brackets were perfectly functional. At German production facilities, these defective brackets would have been inspected, approved, and installed on Panzer tanks. The 847 rejected brackets contained sufficient steel and represented sufficient manufacturing investment that they could have built 17 complete Panzer IV tanks at German production standards, where conservation demanded using every manufacturable component regardless of minor imperfections. American abundance meant discarding imperfect components. German scarcity meant accepting imperfection as necessary for maintaining any production at all. Major Weber visited an intelligence conference in Paris on June 17, 1944, where he reviewed classified production reports obtained from captured American documents, prisoner interrogations, and photographic reconnaissance of American facilities. American industrial capacity exceeded German capacity by ratios that seemed impossible to officers trained in German manufacturing traditions. He studied photographs of the Chrysler Detroit tank arsenal showing a facility larger than many German towns. He reviewed documents showing American steel production of 89 million tons annually compared to German production of 28 million tons annually. He examined reports showing American electricity generation of 280 billion kilowatt-hours annually compared to German generation of 67 billion kilowatt-hours annually. Every fundamental industrial capacity showed American superiority by factors of 3 to 1 or greater. He filed urgent reports documenting American production of tanks, 2,000 monthly versus German 684 monthly, aircraft, 8,000 monthly versus German 2,300 monthly, ammunition, 47 million rounds daily versus German 8 million rounds daily, artillery, 24,000 tubes versus German 7,400 tubes, trucks, 450,000 vehicles versus German 87,000 vehicles. Supplies of every category, American abundance versus German scarcity. He noted that a single American factory produced more tanks than all German factories combined. He calculated that American production would inevitably overwhelm German forces regardless of tactical victories, regardless of individual equipment superiority, regardless of soldier training and discipline. His reports were filed at headquarters, but generated no change in strategic planning. Command remained focused on tactical superiority and ideological conviction that German soldiers would prevail through superior will, discipline, and fighting spirit, that would overcome material disadvantage through moral superiority. June 24, 1944, near Méautis, Normandy, 8:47 hours. Oberjefreiter Dietrich was conducting routine reconnaissance patrol along the Hedgerow-lined roads south of Méautis when his Panzer IV rounded a corner at the intersection of two farm lanes and encountered an American Sherman tank at 180 meters distance. The Sherman had steel prongs welded to its front hull, primitive and ungainly fabrications that looked like agricultural implements grafted onto military equipment. Dietrich's gunner, Unteroffizier Fritz Bauer, acquired target at 8:47 hours, 23 seconds. He called target enemy tank distance 180 wait. Before he could complete the engagement sequence and fire the main gun, the Sherman's engine roared to maximum power, and the tank accelerated directly toward the hedgerow that formed the road boundary. The steel prongs bit into earth and vegetation, tearing through roots that had grown for centuries. The Sherman's engine screamed at maximum power, tracks churning, steel teeth ripping into the hedgerow like a mechanical predator attacking prey. The ancient Norman hedgerow, 4 feet thick with roots 8 feet deep, hedgerow that had stopped vehicles for a month of combat, hedgerow that German defenders had considered impenetrable natural fortifications requiring no additional defensive construction, dissolved before the Rhino device in 7 seconds of sustained mechanical violence. Elapsed time from first contact with hedgerow to complete penetration, 7 seconds. At 8:47 hours, 30 seconds, the Sherman emerged on the German side of the hedgerow at a distance of 67 meters from Dietrich's Panzer IV, appearing where no German defensive planning had anticipated enemy armor could possibly appear. The American tank fired immediately. The 75 shell struck Dietrich's Panzer IV on the right side armor at an angle that allowed penetration. The Panzer IV exploded in flame as ammunition detonated. Kill time from shot to explosion, 3 seconds. Elapsed time from initial contact to Dietrich's survival by emergency bailout through the commander's hatch, 11 seconds total. Dietrich hit the ground, rolled into a drainage ditch, and watched as his tank burned with 3 of his crew still inside. The engagement that he had expected to conduct at long range with German tactical advantage had become point-blank ambush with complete American tactical surprise. At 8:49 hours, 3 more Rhino-equipped Shermans broke through hedgerows at different points along the defensive line that Dietrich's platoon had been assigned to patrol. The hedgerows that German tactical planning had integrated into defensive schemes as impassable barriers channeling enemy movement into prepared killing zones had become completely permeable to American armor. First Sherman, designated tank Red 2 by its crew, penetrated Hedgerow at map coordinates 49.32 N, 1.24 W and engaged German machine gun position established in a stone farmhouse cellar. Sherman fired high-explosive shell at 0849, 14. Shell struck building, detonated, collapsed cellar, killed entire three-man machine gun crew. Kill time from emergence to crew death, 4 seconds. Second Sherman, designated tank Red 5, broke through Hedgerow at 0849, 28 and encountered German Bocage 40 anti-tank gun position that had been carefully sighted to cover the road intersection. The Bocage 40 crew attempted to traverse their weapon toward the Sherman that had appeared 45 meters to their flank rather than in the expected position on the road. Sherman fired before Bocage 40 could complete traverse. High-explosive shell struck the anti-tank gun's shield, penetrated, detonated against the breech mechanism, killed 2 crew members immediately and wounded 3 others. Kill time, 6 seconds from Sherman emergence to gun destruction. The Bocage 40 position had been established 3 weeks earlier, carefully camouflaged, registered on expected enemy approaches, manned by experienced crew. American Rhino device made all these preparations irrelevant by attacking from an impossible direction. Third Sherman, designated tank Red 7, penetrated Hedgerow at 0849, 41 and emerged directly behind German command post established in a farm cottage. Command post contained platoon leader, radio operator, and 2 runners. Sherman rotated turret, acquired target, fired high-explosive shell through cottage rear wall. Shell detonated inside cottage. Building collapsed. All 4 German personnel killed instantly. Kill time, 8 seconds from penetration to command post destruction. Elapsed time from initial engagement at 0847-23 to loss of German command and control at 0849, 49, 2 minutes 26 seconds. At 8:52 hours, 5 additional Shermans penetrated the defensive perimeter at widely separated points, each emerging through hedgerows that German planning had assumed were impassable. German defensive positions designed to provide mutual supporting fire along expected enemy approaches found themselves isolated, unable to support each other, unable to concentrate fire, unable to execute defensive plans that assumed enemy armor would advance along predictable routes. Sherman designated tank Red 9 destroyed German supply truck at 0852, 17. Kill time, 5 seconds. Tank Red 11 destroyed mortar position at 0852, 34. Kill time, 7 seconds. Tank Red 14 destroyed machine gun position at 0852, 55. Kill time, 4 seconds. Tank Red 16 overran communications wire, severing German telephone connections at 0853, 02. Elapsed time to communications failure, 12 seconds. Tank Red 18 emerged behind German defensive line at 0853, 21, and fired at retreating German infantry, killing 7 soldiers and wounding 13 more before they could reach cover. German forces initiated retreat at 8:54 hours after loss of command post, communications, and multiple defensive positions. Retreat became disorganized rout as soldiers abandoned positions without orders, fled without coordination, left equipment behind without attempting recovery or destruction. Total engagement duration from initial contact to German retreat, 5 minutes, 17 seconds. Enemy losses: 1 Panzer IV tank destroyed with 3 crew killed, 1 command post destroyed with 4 personnel killed, 2 machine gun nests destroyed with 6 personnel killed, 1 anti-tank position destroyed with 2 personnel killed, 1 mortar position destroyed with 3 personnel killed, 1 supply vehicle destroyed, 17 soldiers killed, 34 soldiers wounded. Approximately 120 soldiers retreating in disorder, leaving equipment and defensive positions intact for American capture. American losses: 0 vehicles destroyed, 0 vehicles damaged, 0 personnel killed, 2 personnel wounded by small arms fire. Kill ratio: multiple German positions and 1 German tank destroyed to 0 American vehicle losses. The ammunition expended in this 5-minute engagement: approximately 340-75 shells, 2,600.30 caliber machine gun rounds, and various high-explosive shells, exceeded the monthly allocation for the entire German battalion stationed in the sector, which received 280-75 shells, 1,800 machine gun rounds monthly when supply conditions permitted. Oberstleutnant Müller reviewed Dietrich's combat report at headquarters that evening with visible skepticism bordering on hostility. Dietrich stood at rigid attention, his face blackened with soot from the burning tank, his uniform torn and bloodstained from crawling through the drainage ditch, his hands shaking slightly from combat stress and survival adrenaline. "Your tank was destroyed by a Sherman at 180 meters. Impossible," Müller stated flatly. Sherman 75 guns cannot penetrate Panzer IV armor at that range frontally. Our armor specifications show 80 side armor resistant to 75 shells beyond 300 meters. Your report describes impossibilities. Dietrich maintained his attention position, speaking carefully. "Herr Oberstleutnant, the Sherman penetrated the Hedgerow. It appeared on our flank at close range where specifications become irrelevant. The shot struck our side armor at 67 meters distance, not 180 meters. The penetration struck at an angle that allowed shell penetration through side armor. 3 of my crew are dead, including my gunner, driver, and loader. My tank burns in a ditch near Méautis." "This is not speculation. This is observation." Müller studied the report again, his expression hardening as he noticed details that corroborated other reports he had received. 3 separate positions reported similar penetrations within minutes. 4 different units reported Hedgerow penetrations by Sherman tanks in the same sector within a 2-hour period. "These Rhino devices allow them to break through the Bocage?" he asked, his tone suggesting he hoped for denial. Dietrich nodded carefully. "They don't go around the hedgerows anymore, Herr Oberstleutnant. They go through them. 7 seconds from contact to complete penetration based on my observation. They appear where we don't expect them. Our defensive planning assumed hedgerows would channel their movement. This assumption is no longer valid. They create their own routes through terrain we considered impassable." Müller dismissed the report as equipment failure or crew error, but marked it for Major Weber's attention with a notation indicating potential tactical significance. He filed the report with similar reports received from other sectors. He noted the pattern, but refused to acknowledge its strategic implications. The mathematics of German tactical superiority still seemed valid based on individual equipment comparisons. The possibility that American innovation could neutralize terrain advantages remained unthinkable within his operational framework, built on assumptions of German technological and tactical superiority. Intelligence dismissed the reports as isolated incidents involving inexperienced crews surprised by routine American attacks, conducted with temporarily effective tactical innovations that would soon be countered through proper defensive adjustments. Müller reviewed 5 similar reports from different sectors over the next 48 hours, each describing Shermans breaking through hedgerows rapidly and attacking from unexpected angles. Officers at division headquarters analyzed the pattern and concluded that American forces had simply been lucky, surprising defenders who had relaxed their vigilance. Each described Shermans breaking through hedgerows rapidly and attacking from unexpected angles, but command interpreted these reports as evidence of German tactical mistakes rather than American innovation significance. He stated the impossibility clearly at the morning briefing on June 26. "Hedgerows are 4 feet thick, with roots 8 feet deep, based on engineering analysis conducted by our pioneers. No tank can simply push through them without specialized engineering equipment. These reports describe mechanical impossibilities or crew failures to maintain proper defensive positions. The reports indicate surprise attacks, which means our troops failed to maintain proper security. This is a discipline problem, not an equipment problem." Major Weber reported to headquarters at the Schädau de Mauern on June 27 with compiled intelligence that he had spent 3 days assembling from multiple sources. "Herr Oberstleutnant, 17 separate engagements in 3 days report these Rhino-equipped tanks penetrating Bocage defenses, 23 separate engagements over 5 days, 41 engagements over 1 week. The pattern is consistent across the entire front from Kärnten to Caumont. American production has fielded over 2,000 of these devices according to prisoner interrogations and captured documents. Our defensive advantage in the Hedgerow country is being systematically neutralized. A single American factory in Detroit produced 4,000 of these devices in 3 weeks according to production reports obtained from captured American logistics documents. Our entire armaments industry cannot produce simple modifications at this speed." Weber presented production data showing that American welding capacity for these field modifications exceeded German capacity to build complete tanks at the current reduced production rates. Müller studied the numbers with growing unease, but maintained confidence in German tactical superiority through superior training and equipment quality. "We adapt," Müller stated. "We always adapt. German tactical flexibility will counter this innovation just as we've countered every other innovation." American production of Rhino devices reached 4,000 units monthly according to captured production schedules. German production of all tank modifications across all types, all vehicle categories, all equipment upgrades combined reached 340 units monthly across the entire defense industry, according to internal German production reports. A single American field workshop in Normandy equipped 400 Shermans with Rhino devices in 1 week, working with portable welding equipment and salvaged German beach obstacles. The entire German field maintenance system serviced 280 tanks in the same period across the entire Western Front, using established repair depots with proper equipment. American production: 2,000 Sherman tanks monthly from all factories in the United States. German production: 684 tanks monthly across all types from all factories in Germany and occupied territories. A single American factory, the Chrysler Detroit Tank Arsenal in Detroit, Michigan, exceeded all German production facilities combined operating across an entire nation. American electrical welding capacity exceeded 12,000 certified welders working in Normandy alone. German welding capacity across all military repair facilities in France totaled approximately 2,400 certified welders. American forces could modify more equipment faster than German forces could repair damaged equipment. The mathematics were becoming undeniable through repeated observation, regardless of command reluctance, to acknowledge strategic implications. They tried reinforcing Hedgerow positions with additional anti-tank guns, deploying Bocage 40 and Bocage 43 guns at Hedgerow intersections to cover potential breakthrough points. The Americans broke through between the guns at unexpected locations and flanked them from directions the guns couldn't traverse to cover, killing gun crews before they could reposition weapons. They attempted creating deeper defensive positions behind multiple Hedgerow lines, establishing fallback positions designed to contain American breakthrough by forcing them to penetrate multiple defensive barriers. The Americans penetrated each line in seconds, maintaining momentum through multiple barriers faster than German forces could reposition, and achieved deep penetrations before German reserves could react. They deployed panzer reserves for rapid counterattack, positioning armor behind the front lines to respond quickly to American breakthrough and restore the defensive line. American artillery, directed by forward observers using radio communications, destroyed German armor before it could engage American breakthrough forces, calling in devastating bombardments that destroyed tanks while they were still moving toward combat. They attempted night attacks to infiltrate American positions before dawn, when reduced visibility might negate American firepower advantages. American forces maintained defensive perimeters with searchlights mounted on vehicles and overwhelming firepower that turned night into day, illuminating German infantry attempting infiltration, and destroying them with machine gun fire and artillery that made darkness irrelevant as cover. July 2, 1944, near Raid-sur-Sioule, 6:30 hours. 27 Rhino-equipped Shermans attacked German defensive positions held by elements of the 12th SS Panzer Division across a 4-kilometer front extending from the village church to the stone bridge over the Sioule River. The Americans advanced in coordinated waves, using tactics refined through 3 weeks of combat experience with the Rhino devices. At 6:30 hours precisely, first wave of 9 Shermans hit the Hedgerow line simultaneously at 9 different points spread across the defensive front. Coordination was precise, timing exact, execution simultaneous. Elapsed time to penetration: 7 seconds average per tank, with fastest penetration at 5 seconds and slowest at 9 seconds. At 6:31 hours, all 9 Shermans had penetrated and engaged German positions, with immediate fire support from following infantry. 1st Panzer IV, commanded by Oberfeldwebel Martin Schneider, engaged leading Sherman at 0631, 14 hours from a hull-down position behind a stone wall. Schneider's gunner fired at 0631, 17. Shot missed by 2 meters, striking earth embankment behind the Sherman. Sherman rotated turret, acquired target, fired at 0631, 23. Shot struck Panzer IV turret front, penetrated armor, killed gunner and loader, wounded commander. Panzer IV immobilized. Kill time, 6 seconds from American shot to German vehicle immobilization. 2nd Panzer IV, commanded by Feldwebel Hans Becker, engaged at 0631-28 from concealed position in farm building. Becker's shot hit Sherman at 0631-34. Sherman armor deflected shot. Sherman returned fire at 0631-38. High explosive shell struck farm building wall, collapsed structure, buried Panzer IV under rubble. Kill time, 4 seconds from structure collapse to vehicle immobilization. Crew survived but vehicle lost. 3rd German position, a Bocage 40 anti-tank gun manned by crew under Unteroffizier Joseph Culin, engaged at 0631-52. Sherman designated tank White 7 rotated turret, fired high explosive shell at 0631-58. Shell struck gun shield, penetrated, detonated against breach. Gun destroyed, 3 crew killed instantly. Kill time, 6 seconds from target acquisition to crew death. At 6:33 hours, 2nd wave of 9 Shermans penetrated at different points, exploiting gaps created by 1st wave and expanding penetration frontage to overwhelm German defensive capacity. German forces attempted to reposition to address multiple breakthrough points, but coordination broke down as communications failed under American fire. At 6:35 hours, German command post transmitted retreat order. At 6:36 hours, 3rd wave of 9 Shermans completed the penetration, emerging deep in German rear areas where no defensive positions had been established, because such penetration had seemed impossible through Bocage terrain. Total engagement duration, 12 minutes, 42 seconds from initial penetration to German retreat. Enemy losses, 5 Panzer IV tanks destroyed, 3 Panzer IV tanks immobilized and later destroyed, 4 anti-tank guns destroyed, 2 command posts destroyed, 2 supply vehicles destroyed, 1 half-track destroyed, 67 soldiers killed or wounded, approximately 240 soldiers retreating in disorder without attempting equipment destruction or position denial. American losses, 1 Sherman immobilized by mechanical failure, thrown track due to Hedgerow penetration stress, later recovered by maintenance crew and returned to service within 6 hours. Additional losses, 2 Shermans with minor damage from German anti-tank fire, all damage repairable in field conditions. 0 American tanks destroyed. 0 American personnel killed. 6 American personnel wounded by small arms fire and shell fragments. Kill ratio, 8 German armored vehicles destroyed or captured to 0 American vehicles destroyed, representing infinite kill ratio where division by 0 is undefined, but operationally means complete German defeat. The ammunition expended in this engagement, approximately 890.75 shells, 12,000.30 caliber machine gun rounds, 340.50 caliber machine gun rounds, and various high explosive shells, exceeded the monthly allocation for the entire 12th SS Panzer Division Artillery Battalion, which received 720 artillery shells. 8,900 machine gun rounds monthly when supply conditions permitted full allocation, which had not occurred since June 15. The fuel consumed in this engagement, approximately 2,340 gallons of gasoline by American forces moving tanks, supporting vehicles, and maintaining operations, exceeded the weekly allocation for the entire German regiment in the sector, which received 1,890 gallons weekly distributed among all vehicles, generators, and mobile equipment. American forces consumed more fuel in one 12-minute engagement than German forces received for an entire week of all operations. The mathematics documented absolute material superiority that made German tactical excellence increasingly irrelevant against overwhelming American material abundance. Oberjefreiter Dietrich observed this engagement from a concealed position 800 meters distant, where he had been stationed as forward observer after losing his tank on June 24. His after-action report, filed at 1400 hours on July 2, stated with remarkable clarity, "The Americans no longer respect the Bocage. They treat hedgerows as minor obstacles, temporary barriers to be eliminated through mechanical force rather than avoided through tactical movement. Their coordination between armor and infantry is improving rapidly through practical experience. They learn from each engagement and apply lessons immediately in subsequent operations. Our defensive advantages are disappearing faster than we can develop new tactical approaches. The mathematics have changed fundamentally. We can no longer predict where they will attack because they attack everywhere simultaneously, creating multiple breakthrough points that overwhelm our capacity to respond effectively. The hedgerows that gave us defensive advantages for 1 month have become tactical liabilities because we based our defensive planning on terrain assumptions that are no longer valid. Recommendation: withdraw to prepared positions beyond Bocage country where terrain doesn't favor American mechanical innovations and where our tactical excellence might again prove decisive. Dietrich's report reached Major Weber on July 3. Weber added it to his growing collection of evidence documenting German defensive failure. He calculated casualty rates, equipment loss rates, territory loss rates. Every metric showed German forces losing ground faster than reinforcements could arrive, losing equipment faster than replacements could be provided, sustaining casualties faster than recovered wounded could return to duty. He prepared a comprehensive intelligence assessment and requested meeting with General der Infanterie Dietrich Krayas, commanding the 352nd Infantry Division. June 28, 1944, near Raid-sur-Sioule, 14:30 hours. 15 Rhino-equipped Shermans attacked German defensive positions held by elements of the 12th SS Panzer Division. The Americans advanced in coordinated waves. At 14:30 hours, first wave of 5 Shermans hit the Hedgerow line. Elapsed time to penetration, 8 seconds per tank. At 14:31 hours, all 5 Shermans had penetrated and engaged German positions. 1st Panzer IV destroyed at 1431:34. Kill time, 11 seconds from emergence. 2nd Panzer IV destroyed at 1431:52. Kill time, 9 seconds. 3rd German position, a Bocage 40 anti-tank gun, destroyed at 1432:15. Kill time, 6 seconds. At 14:33 hours, second wave of 5 Shermans penetrated at different points. German forces attempted to reposition. American infantry followed the armor through the gaps. At 14:35 hours, third wave of 5 Shermans completed the penetration. Total engagement duration, 9 minutes 42 seconds. Enemy losses, 3 Panzer IV tanks destroyed, 2 anti-tank guns destroyed, 1 command half-track destroyed, 47 soldiers killed or wounded, 120 soldiers retreating in disorder. American losses, 1 Sherman immobilized by mechanical failure, later recovered. Kill ratio, multiple German vehicles and positions destroyed to 0 American combat losses. The ammunition expended in this engagement exceeded the monthly allocation for the entire 12th SS Panzer Division Artillery Battalion. The fuel consumed in this engagement exceeded the weekly allocation for the entire German regiment in the sector. Obergefreiter Dietrich observed this engagement from a concealed position 800 meters distant. His after-action report stated, "The Americans no longer respect the Bocage. They treat hedgerows as minor obstacles. Their coordination between armor and infantry is improving rapidly. Our defensive advantages are disappearing. The mathematics have changed. We can no longer predict where they will attack because they attack everywhere simultaneously." Major Weber presented updated casualty and equipment loss figures to division headquarters. German armor losses in the Bocage had increased by 340% since the introduction of Rhino-equipped Shermans. American breakthrough operations that previously required hours now required minutes. German forces were being systematically pushed back. Weber's analysis showed that at current loss rates, German defensive positions would collapse within 3 weeks. He noted that American production could replace losses overnight, while German reinforcements required weeks to arrive and could not be replaced at all. His report concluded, "We face not an army but an industrial system that produces combat power faster than we can destroy it." July 3, 1944, Chrysler Detroit Tank Arsenal, Detroit, Michigan. At the Chrysler facility, engine assembly achieved 94-second completion time per unit. Every 94 seconds, another complete Sherman engine rolled off the assembly line. This single facility produced more complete tank engines daily than all German factories combined produced in a week. Workers moved with practiced efficiency, installing components with mechanical precision. Margaret O'Sullivan's mounting bracket production had increased to 923 brackets per shift through improved tooling. Robert Washington's turret ring station now produced 178 rings per shift after process optimization. The mathematics were overwhelming. American production exceeded German production by ratios that made military resistance ultimately futile. Americans discarded 34 tons of aluminum scrap daily from aircraft production at the Willow Run facility adjacent to the tank arsenal. Germany allocated 21 tons of aluminum monthly to the Luftwaffe for aircraft repairs across the entire Western Front. The waste from a single day at one American factory exceeded an entire month's allocation for German aircraft maintenance. Workers threw away damaged aluminum panels that German engineers would have carefully repaired, straightened, and reinstalled. The scrap bins contained enough raw material to build 17 complete Messerschmitt fighters using German conservation practices. Workers threw away defective ammunition in testing that Germany would have issued to combat units. The quality control rejection rate at American ammunition plants exceeded Germany's total production in some categories. Americans tested ammunition by firing it. Germans tested ammunition by visual inspection. American small arms ammunition production exceeded 20 million rounds daily. German production managed 3.2 million rounds daily. The rejected ammunition from a single day's American production exceeded Germany's weekly output. The cafeteria at the Chrysler Tank Arsenal discarded more coffee daily than German forces in Normandy received monthly. American workers drank coffee freely throughout their shifts. German soldiers received ersatz coffee substitutes made from roasted grains. The cafeteria threw away more meat trimmings in one day than an entire German regiment received in rations over a week. American workers complained about cafeteria food quality while eating meals that exceeded German officer rations. Aluminum scrap from a single day's production at American factories exceeded 67 tons. Germany allocated 45 tons of aluminum monthly for all military applications in the Normandy sector. The discarded aluminum represented enough raw material to build 89 aircraft at German production standards. American quality control rejected components that German engineers would have accepted as usable. The waste represented abundance beyond anything in German experience. Discarded ammunition in testing at American facilities exceeded 2.4 million rounds weekly. Germany allocated 1.8 million rounds monthly to forces in Normandy for all combat operations. American testing protocols required firing samples from each production lot. Germans issued ammunition directly to combat units without testing. The waste in American quality control exceeded German combat allocation. This single aspect of American production, merely the testing and discarded ammunition, exceeded Germany's entire allocation for the Normandy front. Major Weber compiled these production statistics from captured American documents and prisoner interrogations. He presented them at headquarters with growing urgency. American workers earned wages that exceeded German officer pay. American factories operated continuously without rest. American production exceeded German capacity across every category measured. Weber's report concluded, "We are not fighting an army. We are fighting an economic system that treats warfare as a production problem and solves it with industrial methods that exceed our comprehension." July 12, 1944, near St. Lo. 47 German armored vehicles faced 234 Rhino-equipped American tanks in the largest engagement since D-Day. The engagement lasted 3 hours, 42 minutes. At 6:30 hours, American forces initiated coordinated attacks across a 12-kilometer front. First wave of 20 Shermans penetrated hedgerows at 18 different points simultaneously. German defenders could not respond to multiple breakthrough points. At 6:33 hours, 9 German positions destroyed. Average kill time per position, 8 seconds after Sherman emergence. At 6:40 hours, second wave of 30 Shermans penetrated and began flanking maneuvers. German forces attempted to consolidate defensive line. At 6:45 hours, 12 additional German positions destroyed. Kill time per position, 4 to 11 seconds. At 7:02 hours, German forces received orders to retreat. American armor pursued, destroying vehicles attempting to withdraw. At 7:15 hours, Oberstleutnant Müller led a counterattack with 6 Panther tanks attempting to cover the retreat. His formation engaged American Shermans at 1,200 meters. At 07:16:34, 1st Panther destroyed by American tank destroyer. Kill time, 43 seconds from initial contact. At 07:17:22, 2nd Panther destroyed. Kill time, 37 seconds. At 07:18:56, 3rd Panther immobilized. Kill time, 52 seconds. At 071903, Müller's Panther took a direct hit to the turret ring from a flanking Sherman that had penetrated through a hedgerow on his right side. Elapsed time from engagement to death, 4 minutes 3 seconds. At 071908, Müller's Panther exploded, killing the entire crew. Kill time, 5 seconds from hit to explosion. At 8:20 hours, German forces completed retreat, abandoning 31 destroyed vehicles and 14 immobilized vehicles that were subsequently destroyed by American forces. At 10:12 hours, final German positions overrun. Enemy aircraft destroyed, none present. Enemy armored vehicles destroyed or abandoned, 47 total. Enemy anti-tank positions destroyed, 63. Enemy soldiers killed, 347. Enemy soldiers captured, 892. American losses: 11 Shermans destroyed, 19 Shermans damaged but recovered and repaired, 63 soldiers killed, 187 soldiers wounded. Kill ratio: 47 German armored vehicles to 11 American vehicles, a ratio of 4-3-1 in American favor. This wasn't combat. This was systematic annihilation. The ammunition expended exceeded the monthly allocation for the entire German 352nd Infantry Division. The fuel consumed exceeded the weekly allocation for all German armored forces in the Normandy sector. Obergefreiter Dietrich survived the engagement and wrote in his combat log, "This wasn't combat. This was systematic annihilation. They came through hedgerows we thought impenetrable. They appeared from directions we didn't expect. Their numbers seemed infinite. We destroyed their tanks and more appeared immediately. We killed their soldiers and more took their places. The mathematics are no longer theoretical. They are deadly and absolute." August 1944, prisoner of war camp, England. Major Klaus Weber testified to Allied intelligence officers about German defensive operations. His testimony was recorded and later entered into official records. "We were not defeated by better soldiers, but by better factories. American tank production exceeded 2,000 units monthly. German production reached perhaps 680 tanks monthly at best." A single American factory, the Chrysler Detroit Tank Arsenal in Detroit, Michigan, produced 1,410 tanks monthly. This single facility produced more than our entire national industrial capacity. American production of the Rhino Hedgerow cutting device reached over 4,000 units in 3 weeks of field production. Our entire armaments industry could not produce simple steel modifications at this speed. The mathematics were absolute. We faced an industrial system that treated warfare as a production problem. Obergefreiter Hans Dietrich testified from the same camp. His statement entered official records. "I saw American tanks penetrate hedgerows in seconds that we believed would stop them for hours. I watched German positions destroyed faster than we could report their loss. The Americans didn't just outproduce us. They revolutionized production itself. They created solutions in weeks that we couldn't match in months. Their Rhino devices were crude, simple welded steel, but they were effective and they appeared in thousands. We had superior tanks individually. They had superior production systematically. I destroyed 4 American tanks on D-Day. By July, I was retreating from 40 American tanks because we had no reinforcements and they had unlimited replacements." Additional testimonies from captured German personnel included recurring themes. A Panzer commander stated, "We brought swords to what became industrial warfare. Our tanks were better in individual combat, but they faced industrial production that replaced losses faster than we could inflict them." A logistics officer testified, "Their excess capacity exceeded our maximum effort. We struggled to deliver ammunition. They discarded more ammunition in testing than we allocated for combat. Their waste exceeded our production." A captured colonel stated, "They could lose 11 tanks and replace them overnight from factories in America. We lost 11 tanks and waited weeks for replacements that never came. The mathematics were impossible to overcome." German production statistics compiled from captured records documented the disparity. American production: 48,000 Sherman tanks total production during the war. German production: 24,630 tanks of all types total production during the war. Single American factory production: Chrysler Detroit Tank Arsenal produced 16,920 tanks between 1940 to 1945. Entire German industry production: all German factories combined produced 24,630 tanks between 1930 and 1945. One American factory produced 68.6% of all German tank production, using only a fraction of American industrial capacity. American workers at the Chrysler facility earned average wages of $1.18 per hour, working 48-hour weeks with overtime pay. German workers received fixed wages often paid in rationed goods. American factories operated 3 shifts continuously. German factories struggled with Allied bombing and resource shortages. American production increased throughout the war. German production peaked in 1944 and declined thereafter. The mathematics demonstrated industrial systems that existed in different universes of capability. American ammunition production exceeded 47 billion rounds during the war. German production reached approximately 15 billion rounds. American artillery shell production exceeded 500 million shells. German production reached approximately 210 million shells. American aircraft production exceeded 300,000 aircraft. German production reached approximately 119,000 aircraft. Every category showed similar ratios. American productive capacity exceeded German capacity by factors of 2 to 1, 3 to 1, sometimes 5 to 1 or greater depending on the specific weapon system or supply category measured. The testimonies concluded with a consistent theme captured in multiple statements. A German general staff officer stated, "We analyzed American productive capacity before the war and concluded they could never apply it effectively. We were wrong. They applied industrial methods to warfare with efficiency that exceeded our comprehension. They treated military production as an engineering problem and solved it with American industrial methods. We brought military tradition to a fight that required industrial capacity. The mathematics were decisive. American industrial production converted civilian capacity to military production with unprecedented speed. Automotive factories became tank arsenals. Aircraft factories became bomber production facilities. Radio factories became electronics manufacturing centers. The conversion occurred with efficiency that German planners had considered impossible. American workers learned new skills rapidly. Production increased monthly. Quality remained high despite speed. The system worked with mechanical efficiency that overwhelmed German military excellence through sheer productive superiority. Margaret O'Sullivan produced her 847 mounting brackets per shift throughout 1944 and into 1945. Robert Washington's turret ring production continued at 178 units per shift. Joseph Corsetti moved steel blade assemblies through the cutting station, maintaining the 18-minute tank production rate. These workers and millions like them prosecuted the war through production. They never saw combat, but they won the war through industrial capacity that buried German military excellence under avalanches of equipment, ammunition, supplies, and replacements that never stopped arriving. The Rhino device represented this system perfectly. A sergeant named Curtis G. Culin Jr. conceived the design in Normandy using salvaged German beach obstacles. He welded steel prongs to a Sherman's front hull using available materials. Engineers evaluated the design, refined it, and approved mass production. Within 2 weeks, American welders in Normandy were installing Rhino devices on Shermans using assembly line techniques. Within 3 weeks, over 4,000 tanks had been equipped. The entire process from concept to mass deployment required less time than German requisition paperwork typically required for approval to begin similar modifications. German commanders had dismissed American soldiers as soft, American equipment as inferior, and American tactics as unimaginative. They based these assessments on technical specifications and military tradition. They failed to account for industrial capacity that treated warfare as a production problem requiring industrial solutions. They underestimated the capacity of free workers earning good wages to outproduce slave labor and forced conscription. They miscalculated the effectiveness of democratic cooperation versus totalitarian command. The mathematics were final. Industrial abundance buried ideological superiority under the sheer weight of production that made German military excellence tactically impressive but strategically irrelevant. The Rhino-equipped Shermans proved that democratic industrial systems could apply their productive capacity to military requirements with efficiency that exceeded authoritarian systems. Free workers outproduced slaves. Democratic cooperation exceeded totalitarian command. Industrial abundance buried ideological superiority under mountains of equipment that arrived faster than it could be destroyed, in quantities that made replacement automatic. with quality that improved constantly through worker suggestions and engineering refinements that came from factory floors rather than high command directives. June 15, 1944. Oberstleutnant Heinrich Müller had laughed at the American innovation in the Schedau at Mauern. July 12, 1944. Müller died in a destroyed Panther tank as American Shermans equipped with crude steel prongs systematically destroyed his formation. August 1944. His division had been destroyed, his men killed or captured, his confident assertions proven catastrophically wrong. Their mockery became history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in 47,000 German casualties in 6 weeks, and the complete collapse of German defensive positions in Normandy that led directly to the liberation of France and eventual German defeat. The lesson remains: dismissing democratic nations as weak because they prefer peace or underestimating free people's productive capacity invites catastrophic miscalculation. Military excellence and tactical superiority cannot overcome industrial capacity applied systematically. Superior individual weapons cannot defeat superior production systems. Ideology cannot overcome mathematics. The Rhino device was crude, simple, inelegant. It was also decisive because it appeared in thousands rather than dozens, was installed in weeks rather than months, and solved a tactical problem through industrial application rather than military tradition. The mathematics proved absolute. American workers earning good wages and operating modern equipment in safe factories outproduced German workers operating damaged equipment in bombed factories under authoritarian control. Free peoples defending democratic values proved more productive than subjects serving totalitarian ideology. The lesson extends beyond World War II to any calculation of relative national power. Underestimate industrial democracies at your extreme peril, because the mathematics always, eventually, become absolute.